Welcome, everyone, to the State of the Black Woman presented by Lenox Parker. For generations, Black women have been architects of culture, community, and resilience. Often, we are carrying extraordinary responsibility while navigating extraordinary expectations. Tonight's conversation is all about truth. The victories, the pressures, the pivots, the healing, and the future. Our goal tonight is not just to celebrate Black women, but to examine what it truly means to live, lead, love, and evolve as Black women in this moment. As National Women's History Month comes to a close, Lenox Parker proudly honors 6 extraordinary women whose leadership, legacy, and commitment to uplifting others continue to shape our communities and culture. Through The Table She Built, our digital celebration recognizes women who have set not only their seats, but also have widened the table so countless others could gather, grow, and thrive. I want to introduce you all to this year's 2026, The Table That She Built honorees. Our first is Cicely Gay. Cicely Gay is being awarded the Fannie Lou Hamer Social Justice Award, honoring fearless advocacy and a lifelong commitment to justice, equity, and empowering communities. Next is Rhonda Baraka, one of my personal sheroes, and she is being honored with the Coretta Scott King Lifetime Achievement Award, honoring a lifetime of shaping culture, elevating Black storytelling, and building platforms that amplify generations. Next is Sonia Murray. She is being awarded the Ida B. Wells Voice of the People Award. That award honors journalistic excellence, truth-telling, and stories that become cultural touchstones. Next is Egypt Sherrod. Egypt is being awarded the Madam C.J. Walker Excellence in Business and Media Award. This award honors visionary entrepreneurship, media excellence, and building legacy with grace and intention. Next is Rashawn Ali. Rashawn is being awarded with the Maya Angelou Sisterhood and Mentorship Award. This award honors wisdom, encouragement, and unwavering commitment to uplifting women through community and connection. And last but not least is Dr. Jerry Godhigh. Dr. Jerry is receiving the Dorothy Height Community Impact Award. This award honors tireless service, compassion, and transformational impact through community, leadership, and empowerment. If you all could please help us taking a moment to honor these amazing women. And if you want to look their stories up, I promise you will be amazed and inspired by all the amazing things that they've done thus far. And I'm sure that they will continue to do the work moving forward. Now, tonight, I am honored to sit with 3 incredible women who represent leadership across entrepreneurship, wellness, entertainment, and cultural influence. All 3 of these women have built platforms, businesses, and are influential in impacting communities far beyond their individual industries. It is my honor to introduce these women joining us for this important conversation, the 2026 State of the Black Woman. First up, we have Shante Bacon. Shante is the founder and CEO of 135 Agency, one of the most respected strategic communications firms in entertainment and culture. Shante has led groundbreaking campaigns for major studios, global brands, and award-winning films, while helping shape how culture, media, and storytelling reach audiences across the world. Through her leadership, Shante has also become a member to rising communications professionals who are redefining the future of the industry. Please help me welcome Shante Bacon. Next, we have April Love. April is an entrepreneur, producer, motivational speaker, and founder of Ask April Love Productions. April's journey is one of resilience and reinvention. As a cancer survivor, she has transformed her personal testimony into a powerful message of faith, perseverance, and purpose. Whether managing talent, producing projects, or inspiring audiences through her speaking engagements, April is passionate about helping people reset, rebuild, and reclaim their purpose. And last but not least, Navanya Rhodes. Navanya is a drama and intimacy coach whose work focuses on emotional wellness, personal grounding, and authentic connection. Navanya brings a deeply thoughtful perspective rooted in therapeutic practices that help individuals reconnect with themselves, cultivate emotional awareness, and navigate relationships with greater clarity and confidence. Her voice adds an important dimension to conversations about healing, identity, and self understanding. Navanya Rhodes. Ladies, thank you for joining me. Each of you represents leadership in a very different space, but everyone that's a part of this conversation is shaping what it means to be a modern Black woman. So, with that being said, I'm going to start with you, Navanya. Can you share with me your definition of what the state of the Black woman is in 2026 as we speak right now?
I think just overall, Crystal, no matter what state we find ourselves in, we are infinitely better than our ancestors who came here some 400 years ago. No matter the element of hostility or the increase of access, there's still a core that can be traced back to those who were brought over here, right? And in that, we as Black people have created for ourselves a narrative of resilience. And the Black woman has often been the spearhead, figurehead, tip of that, as it were, because we have served all people. We've served our own, we've served others, we've raised our own. And so I say that to say that the state of the Black woman is one of possibility, empowerment, stamina, and undeniable strength. That's who she always has been, and that's who she shall remain to be. And with that, the Black woman has this opportunity in 2026 to really put herself first for a change, to intentionally pour into her own cup. And we are seeing that in the dynamics, both in the workplace with the 300,000 plus displaced, that now many of those women and many others are saying, how can I build my own business? How can I multiply my own increase instead of giving away my time, my talent, and all of my attention to a company that can then just discard me, right? So she's turning her attention towards herself in business. She's turning her attention towards herself in terms of health. And she's turning her attention towards herself in terms of her relationships. So
Nice.
the Black woman she's in the queen's position and she's ready to play chess.
There we go. I love it. What a wonderful way to start this. April, as you are just returned from Ghana, we know,
Yes.
just returned from Ghana, a mover and a shaker, constantly moving. What is as you look around from yourself and your peers, what would your definition of the state of the Black woman be today in March 2026?
Well, first of all, I want to embody everything Navanya just said, okay? I receive all of that. But coming off of my trip from Ghana, I'm so happy to answer this question because it's even expanded, my vision of us globally, us with the lineage of our ancestors in us. I think we're the definition of resilience, for one. And I think that we are the embodiment of evolution. We have evolved. Women are highly educated. And I don't just mean college educated. We're educated by life experiences. We're educated by our lowest point and our highest celebration. You're highly intelligent, highly influential. Like when you bring a Black woman into something, it sweetens it up, And I think people are starting to realize our value. So I think our state, no matter the state of our world, as a Black woman, I don't think we've been in a better place because we're able to shine. We're not, relying on, the degrees and the letters behind our names, or being, Mrs. to Mr. We are it, we are the epitome of strength. We're overextended, but we're over delivering, we've been treated poorly, but we are becoming kind. We are finding community in one another. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like it breaks my heart. And I've heard it for like years, Black women don't get along. That's a whole lie, because Black women hold me up. Like I am enamored by, even going from my illness to where I am today, I could not do it without my tribe of women. So we're resilient, we are educated, we are influential, we are blessed and highly favored, and we're changing the world. And we're moving in territories that have not been embarked upon. We are trailblazing. We're coming, I'm talking about in tech, in media, in farming, what I saw in Ghana, in health, like Navanya said, in wellness. We're becoming completely conscious and unashamed to share our beliefs, no matter if we're the only one standing on it.
I want to ask you, Shantae, in your opinion, from what you see and from everything going on around you, in your opinion, what would you say the state of the Black woman is today in March 2026, amidst everything that is going on in our headlines today?
All right, so the state of the Black woman in about basically Q2 2026, right? I personally feel like right now is a transformational time. I think that if you look at Black women, and I mean, resilience is one thing, but there are over the long arc of history of the Black woman's journey in this country, there have been, every single time it seems like we're getting into position in something, there's always some type of intentional contraction or some type of legal way to limit what we can do and how far we can spread our wings. And I would say that this is just another one of those moments. But the thing about it is, every single time something looks like a contraction, a Black woman ends up turning it around and making leaps and bounds over it, and performing things that people have no idea how she even did. And even though we're in a time where it looks like 300,000 to 400,000 Black women are out of work, I feel like it's a pivotal time in redefining ourselves, because for so long, I had the very unpopular opinion that DEI was really not beneficial to us, right? Because when you could have a brilliant scholar, a person who is a mathematician whiz, a person who's the best legal mind, but as soon as they came in and they were ready to ascend and go to the next level or run a department or have a C-suite type of title, the first place they're placed is in DEI, right? Chief Diversity Officer or some role like that. And so I feel like we were trapped in a cycle where we were told what value we bring to the company without them taking a look at what value we bring to the company. And you would hear some folks, like Bozoma St. John talked about it a lot, about the fact that when she went to Uber, she's like, now I'm head of marketing. And they're like, chief diversity, kind of officer. It's like this, trap that they had where, you want to have a senior role or a seat at the table. That was the value that you brought to the table. And I feel like it's just a time where it looks like a contraction, but essentially what Black women are doing is defining their own value and telling you how they can change your life, how they can make a high impact in a community. And when we come across the hump on this, and those 400,000 Black women are back to work, they're going to be back to work on their own terms, knowing how to maximize the benefits of AI innovations, and able to tell you, no, I am not a diversity senior leader. I'm a senior leader that can change the efficiency of your company. I am a senior leader who can change the way that your legal department runs, the way that your finance department runs, the way that your marketing department runs, the way that your ad department runs. And so just an ability to have a giant reset, and there's never anything wrong with that. So if I had to sum it up in one word, I would say that right now is a time of ascension for Black women, because I know what they're capable of, because they do it every time. Because every time the challenge shows up, like, I mean, even if you look at the presidential campaign from 2024, how many times Was Kamala discounted? Oh, she's not going to do well in the first debate. Smashed it. I mean, every single time, not just doing a good job, smashing it well beyond expectations. And that's what we do every single day. So why would this be any different?
Absolutely. I'm going to take a bit of a pivot, and I love the fact that you're with us, Navanya, because what you do, and as an intimacy coach and as a drama coach, speak to this, because a big part of the Black woman is about relationship, as April just mentioned, relationship with each other, also relationship with our children and with our partners, and understanding that Black women carry so much. We talked about emotionally, financially, professionally, and even within our families. As an intimacy coach, how does that weight actually show up in intimate relationships, and how we're able to receive intimacy, how we're able to give intimacy? Does this affect a woman's ability to be present, vulnerable, or even to experience pleasure?
Yes, I think there is a categorical statistic that shocked me when I first started doing the drama therapy work, is that 9 out of 10 African American women experience some form of unwanted sexual attention, assault, or abuse before the age of 18. And that can range from all out rape, assault, to just the comments that a young Black girl may get when her body starts to change. You know, she got them baby making hips coming on, or so it's a broad statistic. But nonetheless, that puts Black women in a very unique position of being sexualized early, traumatized in the area of sensual connection, and historically being sexualized and victimized in that way. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about trauma living in the body, there is a assault on the womb of the Black woman, whereas she is also the space of creation of all things. So she has a very powerful womb indeed. What happens for us is when we become aware of those things, we can again intentionally pour into ourselves, do what I call womb work, and also give ourselves what I like to call permission slips. Permission to love, to be loving, permission to be soft, to be vulnerable. We have to give ourselves those permission slips, because generally and historically, we've not been afforded that luxury, right? So when the Black woman wants to create a true and pure intimate relationship, she must first start with intimacy with herself, identifying for herself, what does she want? What does she need? What is it for her to be loved fully, completely, intentionally, and unconditionally? And then have the courage to ask for it, right? And all of those things are permission slips. But we would be naive to think that our history and just our proximity in this thing called America does not have an effect on our intimate relationships, right?
Ooh. Okay, that was a lot and so good and explains a lot. We're going to get more into that, but I want to flip over to April, because April, like myself, we met working in the industry, in the entertainment industry, that often does not necessarily have a place for women, at least in my opinion, does not. And you've worked closely with male artists, male managers, talent, managers, producers. And in often those spaces, women have to prove themselves in many different ways. I want to ask you, what behaviors did you have to adopt early on to survive in those environments? And did you have to unlearn some of those behaviors as you realized they were or were not serving you as a woman?
Woo. I am still unlearning, okay? Because the divine feminine didn't have a place in the industry. And I didn't really have a knowledge of who that was. So it was very characteristic for you to emulate what you saw, which was a lot of aggression, a lot of unhealthy competition, a lot of backstabbing and foul language. It just became something that on the outside looking in, you know, it was something I kind of always been drawn to since I was a child. I was always enamored by watching stuff on television and red carpets, and it just drew me in. And it wasn't necessarily the star-studded aspect of it, but I didn't have language for it back then, but it was the act of the, you know, the production of being a part of something, from the ideation to actually seeing it come alive, and then having the opportunity to walk with people and see their successes. And then over the years, it became something else where I found myself losing myself. In the midst of it, I didn't necessarily know what that was. And then I had one of those spiritual moments, and I talk about it a lot because it's how I left, you know, the actual label production company, working, you know, and moving into entrepreneurship, because it was sucking the life out of me. I couldn't really function in the business without, I was on antidepressants. Okay. And if we were in the world of social media back then, people would think, oh my God, she's popping. She's in LA. She's in New York. She's in Atlanta. You know, she is successful. Okay. But successful in the appearance of my work was not me being successful as a person. I wasn't being successful in taking care of April. I was successful in taking care of my career and taking care of the careers that I was charged with, working with. And in that, I had an aha moment, a God moment on a flight from Atlanta to LA that I'll never forget, because it changed the entire trajectory of my life. Even though it didn't slow me down completely, it took a few more years of me doing it, like, you know, sleep when I die. Well, I was about to die. Now I'm just like, you know, let me really get a hold of this. But I knew at that moment, and it was the longest flight ever to LA. And I was dealing with me. I had abruptly also stopped these antidepressants. So I was dealing with a whole lot mentally. I was just like, you know, I'm good. I got this. And it was like, I felt like if I hadn't been on that plane, I would have been in trouble, because I was in a crisis. I didn't understand what that crisis was, but I knew that my time was up operating in the space that I was operating in, because I did not see people that I was proud of. I did not see people. There were some, like I'll talk about Rev Run. We had the same attorney at the time, and just certain people that were just lights in the midst of darkness. And I'm still in this industry. So it's kind of like I'm in this world, but not of this world kind of thing for me now, though, because embodying that was the polar opposite of who I know I was called to be. So they didn't care, you know, it was no integrity. I mean, the ethics were out the window. It was just like, get what you got to get for yourself by any means necessary. And so when I started to see that in my character, it was like one of those devil's advocate kind of, you know, you look in the mirror and like, who is this? I don't recognize you. And I knew then I had to find a way of escape, and I did. But yeah, that was the challenge. I was becoming something I did not recognize, no matter how successful, you know, it appeared to others.
Yeah. And that leads me back to our drama therapy, because I had one of those moments as well. It led me to Devonia's couch years ago.
Thank God for a couch.
Thank God for not just thank God for a couch. Thank God for a Black woman on the other side of it. Because I had another therapist. I had been going to therapy, and that it just wasn't connecting. And when I sat down with another woman where I could see myself and I felt like she could really see me, that's when things changed. And I always, you know, thank you for that moment, Navonya. But here I want to shift based on what April says. It's a wonderful time for me to ask you about our mental health. You know, as Black women, we see these real-time shifts with jobs, what's going on in the country. A lot of us, I was just on a flight to LA, 4 hours in Hartsfield Jackson, ICE agents. It feels very anxiety, like there's points of anxiety everywhere. And I feel like when everything is happening with jobs, with the economy, with issues with family, health care, and all this, it affects us disproportionately, just because of who we are. And so from a therapeutic standpoint, how are these external stressors showing up in us internally? April and I are both cancer survivors. But I just wanted to say that because I feel like a big part of that is because of this. But I want to ask you, how might all this that we're talking about be affecting us mentally in ways that also later on affect our relationships, and just our emotional availability with our partners, with each other, with our children, with our families. How does all this show up and manifest in our mental health?
Right. The mental and the physical are often very tied. So when we look at not only cancer, we also look at fibroids, we also look at high blood pressure, we also look at diabetes, hypertension, fibromyalgia. All of these things have the common denominator of stress. And many times it is challenging to identify stress in your life because you're so used to what you're used to. As April mentioned, that hustle culture, I sleep when I'm dead, all of that. Sleep deprivation alone can cause an extreme debilitating effect on your mental and physical health. This is one of the reasons why I actually curated the Soul Spa experience, which is an experience for women to come and be touched by a acupressure massage therapist, to be stretched by a stretch therapist, and to be healed by yours truly, the drama therapy specialist, where we get into the release of the mind, will, and emotions. And this kind of experience has to be especially curated for Black women because our lifestyles are not designed for that. We don't go play tennis. We don't go to the spa on a regular. Usually it's for our birthday or something like that. We have overwhelming schedules with no domestic help. So we are wearing all of those hats. We have hostile workplaces where that edict of have to work twice as hard to get half as far to be broken down halfway back. All of those things, be they true or changing, it creates a culture in the body. And when you have hostility outside of the body at every turn, that then becomes an incubator for dis-ease and disease. And the dis-ease shows up in chronic irritability. That's where we get the angry Black woman moniker, right? It also shows up in an innate martyrism. That's where we get that strong Black woman. Just, you can do anything to her and she'll just keep on ticking, right? And then we also have what I like to identify as poverty patterns. And those poverty patterns can show up in excessive spending to make you feel worthy or capable or in or whatever that is. And you're causing a financial deficit for yourself. Black women spend, I think it was in the billions of dollars or multi-millions of dollars on hair, makeup, perfume, so forth. So we've gotten into the space of dressing up the outside to the neglect of the inside. And that can be very deceptive because if I look good, I love to see us walk. I like to go walk because we walk like we got a soundtrack just playing, baby. We do that thing. But that creates, I'm fine because I look fine. And we don't have that inventory and that real time to have a real inner conversation with yourself and find out, where am I unwell, right? And so it shows up in her attitude, it shows up in her health scans, it shows up in the alienation of social relationships, as well as in her intimate relationships with all of those who are significant, her children, her parents, her in-laws. The whole gamut is affected. And I know we have a time limit, but I do want to say this. My uncle would say to me, if you don't know where to start where you are. And so it is highly important for the Black woman to create for herself a sanctuary space in her home. where she can connect with the divine nature of self. Now, for me, that is God, Jesus. I love the Lord, right?
Mhm.
But whatsoever that may be, the higher and greater power, somewhere in your home, you ought have an altar. And
Mm.
that can be in your shower. It can even be in your kitchen sink. It can be in your bedroom, wherever. But it is this space that I create an altar. And an altar is simply where humanity communicates with divinity.
Mm.
That's so important. And it has to start in that space, not wait till you go to church on Sunday or whatever, but right where you are, you
Mhm.
must be able to anchor at an altar.
Mm. That's good. Now that's we started with our takeaways. I want to share this with you guys and our audience. If you're watching this, please make sure that you're adding your comments to the chat. I find myself blessed to be a part of these women's tribes, but I wanted to share this with our audience, and I want to definitely hear your feedback because we look forward to this being an ongoing thing. But a friend of mine gifted me this, and when I saw it, I started crying. And it
Oh.
is, I don't want to cry right now, but one of my favorite movies was Gone with the Wind. And there was the character of Mamie, and here she is, because it's the shoulders of these women that we're standing on, right? And she was crafting this superwoman cape, and I feel like we put it on, but we did not understand what we were doing, and I think there's a lot to that, but that blessed me a lot. I want to move on to the next question. April, in this business, you mentioned the work till I sleep, or maybe even till I die, sleep when I die situation.
When I die.
Yeah.
When I die, death is coming quickly if you're doing that.
Absolutely.
But I want to ask you what, that pace in music management and public relations, industries that demand that nonstop pace, especially in your 20s and 30s. Now, all of us are no longer in our 20s and 30s, although we may be going gracefully towards another number, but we're no longer at that space. So
Right.
I want to ask you, what did your pace look like then?
Mm-hmm.
And how does it feel now at this season in your life? Are you working to keep, have you had to make adjustments to the pace that this industry often requires as you've moved up in years?
Have I? Like I shared earlier, I had the worst idea in my head of what the business model was to be successful in entertainment, to be successful in music. I was looking at people, I came up in that era of, watching the labels and watching the people move at like record pace. And then when I found myself in that environment, I was just like, this thing has taken over their lives,
Mhm.
Yes, beneficial financially, but I saw a lot of, you're at an open bar, you're out all night, or you're running around on a tour, and the understanding of taking care of you is not, we didn't have all of this, which is what I love, and I love that Black women are pouring into emerging young Black women as mentees, and that sort of thing, because I want them to understand that there is consequences to that moving like that. You are sacrificing not only your mental health, your physical health, and sometimes they wake up and it's like, oh, I'm in my late 30s and I want to be a mother, and it's just like, okay, or the guy that I kept leaving, what I'm saying, I'm connecting with him only as I move past him. So back then it was just like I felt like I had all the time in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm about to get this, I'm about to do this. I'm going to act like they act. I'm going to move like they move. And like I said, it put me in that tailspin. It had me on antidepressants. It had me really losing sight of who April actually was. And my thing is, I've always been, I thought, cognizant of the fact of who I want to be in the world. I moved with integrity. That's how I was raised. I moved with a real work ethic, but I lost sight of that. And I became not only quote unquote a workaholic, but I was overdoing it. And it took not only the health situation, but my mental capacity. Like I said, what I shared earlier, like that is a bad place to be. You know, when you look a certain way and you're successful and you're flying and you got, you know, a little T&E, but feeling like, I don't even think I can be me without having something, you know, I got to take something in order for me to settle down, to calm down. And now I am entirely the opposite of that. I am so mindful. Now, people still say I move around, but I move around with an emotional intelligence. If I know if I have to say no, my no is a full sentence now. It's not like, oh, is that going to affect my bottom line? Oh, how are they going to feel about me? No, that's irrelevant because, you know, as you know, Crystal is also a cancer survivor, but outside of just that, but just being on the brink of not being conscious of what I was doing to myself, like Navanya spoke about internally. You know, I was not getting quality sleep. I was not, you know, being able to do the things that I talk to my therapist about. I have coping mechanisms. Now, I love to journal. I love to travel, and not just with my laptop, you know, or being on call all the time. I've learned, because that was me. I was immersed in my work. It became like me was second to that. And so having those things happen, which I try to be a learning curve for, you know, younger people, like don't get to a diagnosis or don't get to a failed marriage. I don't get to the fact that now I can't have children. Be mindful throughout the process of how do you want your life to look? You know, how do you want to curate this life that you've been blessed with? I always talk about the dash, the year we were born and the year that we take our last breath. That dash is what matters. And I refuse to give up any more of my dash. You know, I have a lot of respect for my clients. I appreciate them. I'm grateful for them, but I would not sacrifice me for them. And that's changed over the course of the years.
I want to go back to Shantae, because Shantae and I had a beautifully candid conversation, which actually led to this, me insisting that we have this State of the Union conversation, because so many of my peers, I came in this industry right before I turned 30, and I was married with 2 children, but I often felt like a failure because most of my peers did not have children. They had prioritized their work. And they had prioritized their careers. They had prioritized chasing the bag. And I felt behind behind because I had 2 children and at that time a husband. And as the years continued, I did lose that husband. But I had my children, and a lot of my peers, once we got to where we were near 40 and beyond, looked around and realized they didn't have an option. And Shantae is beautiful, you know, has a beautiful experience of being one of those that still had an option. She has a beautiful little boy now that she became a mom. So she kind of is one of those women that you could look at like she had it all, but I know it wasn't easy. So Shantae, I want you to kind of speak to that with that conversation that we had, where you said at one point you were very candid and honest with yourself and said, I want this, and went to your doctor and was intentional. And tell us about how you got to that space. And obviously you were able to have your son, but there's so many women that get to that space and don't have the same outcome as yourself.
Definitely. So first of all, I think that it all kind of ties in together, everything that April just said, plus the conversation that you and I had, because she was just talking about one of the things that I call the biggest myths that was sold to Gen X, right? We were sold hook, line, and sinker, the hustle, hustle, hustle. Look at these icons. You can be like them too if you just work hard, learn, intern, come up, and then, you know, it'll happen for you too. So that was the myth, right? Because if you were an insider in the business, then you knew that the 4 or 5 iconic Black people in the music business, and if we think hard enough, we can think about the ones from each label, they were grandfathered in by usually a Caucasian Jewish executive who run the label and was like, this one right here is my guy. I'm going to take him under my wing. I'm going to mentor him. I'm going to put him in the rooms where the money conversations are being made. So that person was solidifying themselves in the business and convincing everyone under them to work as hard as they possibly could to push them up so that everybody could come up. It didn't quite work that way, though. So I was definitely a part of the Gen X myth buyers, where we all subscribe to this idea that hustle, hustle, hustle. Also, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I am a child of hip hop, right? I considered myself, I felt like a person who died and went to heaven when I got my job at Def Jam, and I was happy to spend the night in the office, which is what got there their attention. It's like this little girl will be in the office, leave at 1 a.m. and come back and be here at 8 a.m. excited. Like every single minute was like, I get to learn how to do sound scan. I get to learn this and learn that. And I'm like a sponge just listening to every conversation. And when I finally made it into the conference room, I felt blessed. In hindsight, as a person who is definitely not in her 20s and 30s, and really at the tail end of the 40s, I would say that I don't look back as in with any regrets or anything like that, because I had a good old time hustling, living out of a suitcase, and I would see the girls in the new JFK 4 terminal more than I saw my family. I'd be walking through with my bag, and they'd be like, "Hey, girl, what's going on this week?" I mean, I went through with my mom and sister one time, and they were like, "This is ridiculous. Everyone in here knows you. What is going on?" So that was good. But when I did get to the point where one thing that I was always mindful of is I don't mind working hard, right? I don't mind building a business. I don't mind going through the kinds of things entrepreneurs have to go through, but I do want to be paid for it, right? Like that was the part of the music business I did not buy. Like I did not think that free work was okay. I did not think that not getting my value was okay. And even when I look back, what I thought was my value really wasn't even it. It was worth way more than that. But I was pushing clients, the industry to pay us more than I knew competitors were making. But when I got to my late 30s, I would say I grew up with 8 nephews and 6 nieces, and I never really felt the burn of like, I really want a kid because I was always Auntie Tay Tay. Then in my late 30s, I was like, I need to give this some attention. And I remember going to a fertility specialist in LA that Keita Williams put me in contact with. We all know Keita. And she was like, girl, she did like this to me at this culture creators brunch. And she was like, take this number. And I was like, okay. And so I went to the doctor and he was like, wow, for your age, this looks all good. But he was like, you need to get going. And so, and after I called myself trying, definitely did get pregnant and then had a miscarriage. And it was like Easter Sunday of 2019. And it never occurred to me how much I wanted to be a mom until that moment. It was like a sadness I could not explain. I did not tell anybody, not my mom, not sisters, not Saptosa, not nobody knew. I was just living with it because there's a lot of shame to it. For me, it was. I felt like I waited so long, I'm being punished, this and that. Like I was living out of a suitcase and doing my whole hustle thing. And now God is like, yeah, okay, you finally getting around to this. So I thought it was that. And then I thought that my options were over. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this thing. So I went to a new doctor and I came in and I'm like, and this one was referred to me by Nakia. And so Nakia Hicks. I went into Dr. Dweck's office and I was like, all right, doc, this is what we're going to have to do. I'm pretty sure we're going to have to do IVF. And so they're like, get some blood, get some urine, blah, 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 the whole thing. And I was out there waiting for so long. And then they came in and Heidi called me in and she's like, not going to need that IVF. And I was like, what do you mean? And so she's like, looks like you're pregnant, but don't get excited. They were the kings of don't get excited. They're like, we need to see where it is and if it's in the right place and, all of that. And so for 10 minutes, I'm going back and forth with her like, wait, really? And she was like, yeah, wait, really? And she's like, don't say wait, really again. I was like, no, seriously? So then when we did the sonogram, it was like a bouncing kidney bean. And the doc was like, oh, this is like 5 weeks. I was like, oh, okay. I had already been married like 4 years and it wasn't getting nothing. So the doctor said to me, do not tell family members, do not get excited, and don't cancel all your flights. Because my miscarriage happened right the day after I flew from LA. And he was like, lay low. He was like, after 12 weeks, then I'll let you know if you can tell your family. And that's exactly what we did. I walked around on pins and needles, afraid to pee or go to the bathroom until like the 12th or 13th week. And then we did a Zoom call because COVID hit right in the middle of that. I found out about him on January 9th, and then the world shut down on March 13th, so I couldn't see nobody in the family anyway. So nobody knew anything. And on Easter Sunday, we did a Zoom call, and Um, I had sent everybody. I literally sent in an Uber a blue box filled with all of this "It's a Boy" stuff, and everybody's on the call screaming. My sisters are screaming and all of that, and they're like, "How come you didn't tell us?" I was like, "We don't see each other. It's not like you're gonna notice. Like it's just the only thing they noticed was they're like their hair is growing really long. What is going on over there?" And so that's how it happened. And even then, I walked around on pins and needles. I had 3 sonograms a week because of my age. I mean, like I got lucky. and and the doctor was constantly setting expectations. He was like, nope. I was like, okay. I mean, like when I say Googling every 5 minutes, oh my God, you think I have this? He was like, get off of Google.
You you were blessed. You were absolutely blessed. That's it's a beautiful story, and I'm glad that we could share that, because I know there's so many other women out there. Navanya, I want you to jump in here because for women that not just with children, there are a lot of women that they may or may not want to have children. They may or may not feel that longing. I experienced that with a partner after going through heartbreak and then embracing my career. The narrative was and has been that successful Black women have a difficult time even getting into a relationship, getting into a loving, supportive relationship, let alone being able to take that and turn it into motherhood, right? So I want you to speak to like that narrative, because I hate that narrative, but I also do realize that for me, it was difficult to be a boss of a company, have staff members under me, be working, taking care of children, and constantly be in control, and then be able to be vulnerable. I would go on dates like I was going on business meetings, you know what I mean? Because I couldn't really shut down. I had my phones on. If a call came through, it was difficult for me to be present, right? And I'm assuming I'm not the only woman specifically that is a career focused woman that has those same challenges. And then you end up in a space where you're older and you realize either I don't have a partner to share this with, or I never got to embrace motherhood, or I've lost friends. You know, I've lost friends or friends I have not talked to that have now become disconnected because of me being so busy. So how can we realize all of this before, how can we be the ghost of Christmas future for some women out there watching that may be able to get this right before they get to be in the seasoned age like some of us are?
Right. I think I want to answer this in 2 different tracks. When you look at something like city planning is often done at least 5 years out, and many times it's 7 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. This is how the infrastructure maintains the mainstream influence, right? So all of your shops, or this is where the property value is going to go up, or this is where we want to drive more economics, or this is where we want to move political power. All of those agendas are in place 5 to 10 years in advance. So I would invite women, Black women especially, to think about, where do I want to see myself 3 years or 5 years from now, so that we're not living in immediate urgency and not giving ourselves the opportunity to have long-term options. The other piece of this is the short-term narrative that you tell yourself. Because even you, Crystal, with all that you shared about being career focused, being maturing in age, you know, all of that, we yet have landed at a place where we are married to a beautiful man with a lovely relationship that grows and goes and all of those things. Mm-hmm. And we have to begin to tell ourselves that it's possible, because all things are possible to them that believe. And the way you are believing is the way you will be living. So if you continue to believe that I'm more likely to get struck by lightning than to find a relationship, then that is what you will emit. And that is the truth you will attract, or the facts that you will attract, right? Because the mind is very powerful, and it tends to bend the universe to prove itself right. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I'm working with women who desire relationship, one of the first things is to get a mantra and an understanding that the man for you is not being born. He's not a cyborg that has to be created in a Peachtree dish. He is already walking and breathing somewhere here on this planet, right? And of the billions of people on the earth, surely a divine God can send one. And I believe that there are many, you have many soulmates and many places of possibility and compatibility. But if all you can believe for is that one person who can love you fully, deeply, completely, and you get your internal narrative that you are worthy to be loved fully, deeply, and completely, there is such a joy that is present in believing that versus believing I'll never find love. There's no one out here for me. That ages you fast. I just spent time with girlfriends and sorority sisters, and they're like, Navanya, you still look the same. And I'm like, girl, I laugh well. Sleep is my best friend. I am loved, I am loving, and I am lovable. And I remind myself of that every day. And therein is the fountain of youth that everyone has access to, right? So it starts with the story you tell yourself and the story you give yourself permission to write.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. All of you out there are taking these gems. That's why we have these powerful ladies. This conversation is so good. I want to go back to April because April is one of the friends I know that does a lot of like actualization and because I personally realized that before I could even be open to a man, I had to be open to Crystal. I had to get to where I really knew who Crystal was. And in this business where often your achievements define who you are, I struggled with that, and I think you and I have been friends for a long time. You're aware of that struggle of, am I proud of, I realized I was only proud of myself when I was racking up the numbers. It was hard for me to go through something that was challenging or not get what I assume was success and still be proud. And I could not love Crystal unconditionally is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so that was something I struggled with, still struggle. And so I want to ask you, as someone that speaks to others and empowers others, how did you learn to accept and embrace April unconditionally? Because this business does not suggest that. You and Shantae both can attest to. You are as hot or as you're as your phone rings according to that last client that was successful.
That's right.
Success when it comes to a big PR campaign. That is how you are. That's how you are judged. That's how often people will want to be in space with you. Is based on that success. So how did you learn to look past that and to unconditionally accept and embrace yourself?
That's a great question because I had to fall in love with April because I went for many years not really liking her. I felt defeated by her. I felt sometimes betrayed by her. So I had to come to a place where I really got to know her. And I too am a believer, Navanya. So I went to God in prayer a lot. However, what I was not doing was meditating on that, meditating on the word, meditating on my prayer life and coming out with answers. I would just give it all and not receive. I would pray it all out and then wouldn't sit still long enough to be able to hear. And so then God sent me to a work, it's neurolinguistic program, and I became completely just infatuated with it in the sense of how it takes you back. And I became a master practitioner in it. And then I got into meditation. This really started happening before I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So once I got into God sitting me down and me healing, I not only was healing my body, but I was healing my mind, body, emotion, the entire holistic embodiment of me. And I got to know the things, and I went back in that timeline and I was like, but when did I lose my joy? When did I stop honoring what I wanted and started to figure it all out? I was like interwoven in so many, like an unhealthy relationship, really creating an environment that was really toxic, you know. And I had to have one of those come to Jesus moments. And I realized through my work, through deep work, through prayer, that I could be the only one. No one was coming to save me. I had to save myself. And that kind of changed over the course of, I'd say, a good 2 years. And I was able to really start to look at me and look for what I wanted. I was moving day by day. I didn't move, you know, like live in the present. Yes, the present is a gift, but I also had to understand and look at the long term and wanted to see what my story, like Nabanya just said, 3, 4, 5 years. What do I want? And am I working towards that? And I really realized that I was not. I was living in the hype. I was living in that particular season to the point that I was stuck. So then when things came up on me and I had these different roadblocks, I wasn't necessarily able to cope. I wasn't necessarily able to process. And once I came to terms with the fact that, hey, feel this. It's okay to feel your emotions. It's okay to say no or turn yourself away from something that other people are telling you, you should do this, you should do this. And when I really started honoring my own, you know, my own voice and what I knew to be the purpose that God put me on this earth, why I was born, where I was born, to who I was born to, the challenges and all of the things that I had to deal with coming up, I realized, okay, this was for such a time as this for me to do a different thing. So yes, I'm still a writer. I'm still, pitching. I'm still doing what I'm doing, but I'm doing it differently. I'm doing it with purpose in mind. I'm like, this does not align with me just because it looks good, So I started saying yes to the things that serve me. I started saying no to the things that don't. And I ended a relationship, a long-term relationship that people were, and I said, I don't hate him. I love me. Yeah. And those two don't match right now. And then, my entrepreneurial journey just took off at that point because I was decided that I was going to do things that honored me. And I started to really not just like me, I started to love me because I knew myself, I had my own best interest. And a lot of people around me did not, So when you come to terms with that, like, okay, this is a great working relationship. Stop calling everybody your friend, your sis, your bro. That energy, I don't want to take on that bro's energy. We got something to do and it ends on September 30th. That's a wrap. Mm-hmm. I want everything around me. I wanted to create an environment that served me. I wanted to create an environment where I could worship, an environment where I could talk to people at a deeper level and them not look at me like an alien, And I started talking about, my subconscious or my God conscious or, my inner child healing. I found my people and my people found me and that fed me. So I was no longer pouring from this. You can't pour from an empty cup. I was letting people drain me. Yeah. But now I moved into an overflow. And so it's been almost mind-blowing what's been drawn to me because of that decision. I have support. Like I said, I love Black women. Black women are like magic to me. They've shown up for me. They positioned me. They have prayed for me. When I had that situation coming back from LA, when I was like, I can't do this no more, I found myself in one of our MD on the road. He said his cousin formed a church, planted a church, whatever. And my spiritual mother to this day, her name is Mother Anna Barrett. When I say that she took me under her wing, she prayed with me. She showed me how to get in touch and tap into the Holy Spirit. And my inner spirit woke up. She healed that inner child in me. And since then, there's been other women around me and other people around me. And I've been able to do the same thing now for others. So it was a decision that had to be made.
Yeah. So I know we got to move through quite a few topics. So you guys, we'll definitely, I will twist these ladies' arms to come back another time for a part 2 and part 3 and part 4. But I want to get through several topics that I think are really important. And that is the next one is just, the process of becoming yourself. Once you get to that point, I felt like once I was okay with Crystal, then Crystal started to change. And Crystal started having issues and things that were happening. Once I got comfortable in my skin, that very skin started to change. And because in today's culture, we are hearing women talk about menopause and perimenopause. And now it's actually like a cultural conversation, but I think it's still something that's very new because to most of us, our grandmothers and mothers did not talk to us about this. Right. So now we're going through it. And for me, I was going through it in an industry that is very, very focused on your external and how you show up and how you present, and also very youth worshiping, right? This entertainment business worships youth at everything, youth and beauty. And so at a certain point as a woman, you start to feel like, wait a minute, who I had gotten comfortable with that version of me. That version is changing. And so I want all three of you, I'll start with Navanya, to speak to the changes that we go through as women and how we can embrace them. First of all, accept and then embrace them moving forward. And I was mentioning this to Shantae, this idea that I had when I was younger of Claire Huxtable, right? That's what I thought aging was. Like she's an older woman, she's beautiful. And you didn't think that Claire might have been having brain fog or might have had, hot flashes or night sweats. None of that, because all you saw was her looking amazing.
Flyer than any of her kids, literally.
Any of them, and very, very husband, very undeserving of that type of woman. But that also was not a realistic snapshot. So I want you to speak to that, and then I'll go on to Shantae.
So for me, the aging process has been one of aging well, aging slowly. I do a lot of herbs and teas and maintain, again, sleep and balance and so forth. So I've never experienced hot flashes. My skin elasticity is still present. My lubrication is still present. All of these things that I have many women talk to me about that they go through as they age that are typical symptoms of menopause. There is space for us to have a holistic approach to aging that allows you to age differently. However, if you are in the space of experiencing some of these symptoms, then going to a holistic practitioner, a practitioner who is menopause informed, and I would say ideally a practitioner that looks like you and feels like a safe space for your soul is what will support you in the highest and greatest way to go through that without feeling like you're going crazy, right? There's also things that you can do with your diet to help you to have more fortitude and grace around aging. So all of that said is both a preventative and a support tool. But what happens when you don't have those things in place? How do you recover? Therapy is so important. Beginning to ask yourself the questions, even a simple question, how do I feel? When you're sitting in your car, just ask yourself aloud, how do I feel? I feel blank. And just continue to fill in that blank so that you can become emotionally aware. And that awareness allows you to have actualization over that. So then you don't feel like you're being tossed and to and fro with your emotions, right? Because when we are in this kind of emotionally unstable state, everything becomes worse. Even when we're in the age of having our cycle, and you just, you break a nail, you start crying. Somebody says, excuse me, and you go off. What you mean, excuse me? Walk around, all of this. And then you look at your calendar and you realize you're PMSing. And suddenly it's like, oh, so now you give yourself more grace. You give yourself more benefit of the doubt. You navigate it differently because you are aware, right? So that would be my suggest, because we don't have to go through it like our mothers or grandmothers did. And B, they probably went through it a lot better than us because they weren't eating all the processed foods, their lifestyle, everything shut down in my grandmama's house at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, and then you had to do that early rising. So the way that they structured their life supported them more from a physical perspective. We're just coming into this season now of eating fast food, not sitting and eating at the table with the whole family. That by itself created a rhythm of rest where you knew you had to be home by a certain time, be ready to sit at a certain time. You're eating a balanced plate. of dense nutrient foods that were cooked on cast iron pots, so you're getting your iron and all of those things. And they were able to do it a lot of times with more grace and ease. So although Claire Huxtable, she was a fictitious character, that was a nod to the rhythm of life for many of our grandmothers and aunties and so forth. So returning to that is a way to support ourselves in this right now season. And go back to some of those things, royal jelly helps you to keep everything lubricated. Getting your vitamins, having a multivitamin can make a tremendous difference in hair loss. MSM powder makes your skin glow and diminishes wrinkles. All of those grandmama secrets, clays, tinctures, and teas, baby, help you do it with ease.
Okay, Shantae, let's talk about the image, because you and I were having this conversation. It's like you look at yourself, and then I remember, sharing with you that I had this idea, of what it felt like, what it should look like to age gracefully, and that is very different, with our generation. I mean, I was just yesterday coming home from the airport trying to keep myself awake, and so I put on T.I., the old T.I. Not that I love the new T.I., but I put on the old T.I. That was a part of my, becoming a woman. I was immersed in hip hop. I live in Atlanta, and I was, as a music publicist, that's my comfort, zone. And that's not necessarily what probably my grandmother was doing, or, my, aunts that as they were older. But I don't feel like I can't listen to T.I. and Jeezy. I feel like that's very much a part of who I am.
Absolutely, because it is.
Right.
Talk to us about your experience and how you see this journey as you move forward in years.
Well, I feel like hip hop defined my life, right? I mean, I was a little girl from Jamaica, Queens, whose brother was an aspiring rapper, and who went to the Def Jam Christmas parties and would bring home cassette tapes of it, and I'd listen to it and hear them shouting out people like DJ Irv, meaning Irv Gotti, when he was just DJing parties at the time. I mean, I remember all of it. I remember Video Music Box. I remember episodes where, in his very early part of his career, where Will Smith was a rapper with a potty mouth at parties. He was cussing more than everybody else. It's so interesting to see the evolution of all of these young men and women who kind of, took control of their destiny and was like leaning into their talent, and, the stars, moon, and sun aligned for it to grow the way that it did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for one, I feel like hip hop has defined my life. There was a time when I would never even be able to admit that there were some serious flaws in hip hop that have affected Black women, our imagery and all of that, because I was protecting it so much. Like, like this thing that gave me so much could not be that thing that you're talking about. But two things can be true at the same time. And it did do a lot of damage to the way that some young women perceive themselves and others. It did damage to the way young Black men see young Black women for so long. And so those are some of the things that as a community, we are not yet mature enough to admit to ourselves on a large scale, and that we do not have conversations about. Those women who you referenced earlier, who get to 39 and 40 and are like, damn, am I out of time on this? A lot of times it's because they haven't met a person who is going to give them the respect that they deserve, and and treat them like they are the prize. They're meeting someone who treats them like they are trying to live out their best rapper fantasy, and she should be okay with being a ride or die. Another myth. That's myth number 2 that was sold to Gen X. Okay, there's 5. But I mean, the first one is the hustle till you die. And I mean, sleep when you die, hustle, hustle, hustle. And the second one is the ride or die myth. Like, that was a one-way principle. It never went both ways, and it never will. And so a lot of the times the women who have reached 39, 40 and don't have a marriage or a child, and they just don't want to make the commitment of just being a single mom because they know what kind of pain that is. They're just like, I mean, I missed my window of time. they didn't get there by themselves necessarily.
Mhm.
Because I feel like this society loves to put all the onus on the woman, right? I don't have any problem with having accountability of something, but we do need to be honest about it, right? There's a reason why they got to that point. But when it comes to imaging and aging, one of the things about aging is that I feel like even from when I was a kid, right? I was always the youngest in my class. I was always okay with being a young-minded person, right? Um, when I look back at it now, when I was younger, I probably would have been diagnosed as neurodivergent, right? Because I was like, well, these are the things that's on the list. I know I'm all of those. And so, like, I'm just like, okay. Attention span, like, short attention span means ADHD. Well, shit, I've had that forever. Not able to focus on one task. Hello. Um, so I was always into the Muppets. I was always into Sesame Street was one of my defining shows in life. And it just so happens, and also just like things that were fun, right? I've always been able to enjoy a good animated film like The Incredibles or whatever. I will spend my money and go to a movie that is an animated film all by myself and have a good time. And I've always been that person. Or I can go like on Christmas Eve, I took my nieces who are like 16 and 18 to go see Zootopia 2 and my son. And now that I'm a mom, I'm all in.
Right.
I'm all in on the animated films, on Hot Wheels and all of it. And so like I just feel like keeping a young spirit helps, because when I get around people who are cousins, are classmates, and everybody's all gray, and I'm like, I don't have any gray hair. We can't be in the same class, right? Like, no, I can't tell people I'm in his class because he looks like somebody's grandfather right now, and I'm in here without any hair, gray hairs at all. And they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm literally just, the same person. I walk around when I go to PTA meetings at the school or I go to anything that's going on. What do I have in my hair? If it's not freshly done, I have two ponytails. I've always been that person. You can ask somebody who went to high school with me. I always am happy to split it in two because it's too much to try to put into one. And it's just a convenience issue. I walk around with two big Afro puffs with some waves in it all the time. I wear my sneakers all the time. And after COVID hit, I was Crocs and slippers all day long. It was years before I put shoes on again. So I just feel like I don't take myself too seriously about anything. The hustle was what I took too seriously.
Yeah.
And I really invested in the myth sold to the Gen X, entrepreneurs and Gen X, people who were hustlers. I feel like that's where I put too much of my energy into. Also, I mean, this is a Black woman roundtable discussion. One of the things that also isn't spoken of a lot is how entrepreneurs and professionals of Gen X don't quite get the credit that they deserve a lot of times when it comes to how many people, how many millennials and Gen Zers we have taught, ushered into the business, have
Right.
mentored, have taught, because once they get it, they take it and they're gone. You don't see them again. They don't have
They don't have the same reverence that I feel
they don't.
we did.
Like anybody who ever taught me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who ever taught me, Leora Cohen, Julie Greenwald, Kevin Lyles, can pick up the phone and ask me for a lot, and I will not even charge.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember one time Kevin needed this screening, and he was like, "So what's the cost?" I was like, "No charge. What are you talking about?" Because these people poured into me when they didn't have to, right? That I can't pay for that. I wouldn't even be able to have a business if it wasn't for the boot camp that I went through with them. But that does not go both ways. That ended with us. You can teach somebody and pour everything you have into them, and once they get it, they're gone. They don't even remember to invite you to shit when they get to where they're going. Like, I'm being real honest, because I saw a lot of Black women having that problem during Black Women in Hollywood, and it was like it was a whole threads conversation where this woman has started it by saying, "I have mentored over 100 girls or whatever, and they're all there, and I'm not." And then the thread blew up with all these people who was like, "Oh yeah, me too." And I'm like, they don't care. Like, none of that means anything.
Do not.
Anything. So I just feel like that used to bother me. It doesn't anymore. Actually, I feel like I am in a lot of people will call it a second win. But I am, momming and caretaking my mom who's 83 with dementia related Alzheimer's. Like, I am so different. It's not even like I can't even recognize the person who used to live out of a suitcase and hustle hard and all of that, who lived for the hustle. Like, I don't know her anymore. She's gone. I
Yeah.
still am an entrepreneur to the core. I'm always going to be, but the value system, the voices that used to be important to me that aren't anymore, like they look like noise. Or sometimes I'm going, why was I ever listening to that person?
To
Or
that.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at people on social media and I'm like, why did I ever take them seriously? Like, this right here, they don't know nothing about this real life right here. So I just feel like whatever season you're in, like, I feel like I feel like hip hop was such an integral part of my upbringing. To answer your ultimate question, I don't mind being a 50-year-old when I do turn 50, who's wearing shell toe Adidas or Air Force Ones, which just got designated as dad shoes, or wearing whatever kind of sneaker I want with two ponytails, a hoodie, and a backpack. And that's how I drop my son off every day, and that's how I go to PTA meetings, and that's how I go to everything,
Yeah.
because that's part of my identity. And I don't feel like, oh, now I'm of a certain age, I need to be wearing
Yeah.
a ponytail to the back and a suit on. Like, no. I'm like, no.
April, you also are part of this generation that, we grew up thinking that things look different, as you get to a certain age, but yet we are all that certain age and still pretty much the same and don't feel a need to change. How do you see it? How do you see the changes in yourself and your self-awareness of becoming more seasoned and in a business that often does not make room for that?
That's season thing. I love that word. Okay. Season, spicy too, season. But I feel like I'm Peter Pan. I always feel like I
That's
do. I literally feel like that. Like, I don't feel the number. Like, I'm not a person like ashamed of my age, but I don't really like have to promote it because I am as young as I am at heart.
absolutely.
And so I have always been the one to hang with the kids, or, now have a grandbaby and I have nieces and I have nephews and I have children. And I am so happy in that place, and just like Shantae was saying, I have people that are my age and they're like, I'm like, girl, you're old. Like, what is happening? You're like,
We did not graduate at the same time.
couldn't have. And I mean, even ones that are a little bit younger, like they've gotten settled, they've gotten complacent. And I'm always excited. I know that I still want to be fun. I still want to have the joy of life. I still want to have a quality of life. That's the promise. We're not just, oh, I got to pay my bills and I'm going to be, I'm not stressed out about none of that. None of it. Okay. And to be able to say that, I know that I'm in a different place because I used to be very full of anxiety. Like, everything would be like, oh my God, it's gonna, I'm like, my phone's got to be right here. This has got to be right here. And I'm just like, child, no more, so coming to a place of knowing that everything is working out for me at all times, everything is working out. I believe what God says, that I'm supposed to have the life of my dreams. I'm supposed to be my ancestors' wildest dream. I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to be in a place where I can really be in a moment and embrace it. And I do that a lot around children and young people. My team is always, they're like in their Lord, like you said, they are so entitled. I got so many like Gen Zers and young millennials. And I'm like, I've had a conversation with a couple of them because I always try to funnel people back from, FAMU and different colleges and work with them. And their expectation is so unrealistic. And it's just like, let me burst your bubble a little bit because it doesn't work like that. It's great that you think and you got this on your vision board and you about to skip to the front of the line. You graduate, they're ready to be Kevin Lyles.
That's exactly right. And your job is just to teach, but not require them to do anything.
Not at all.
No accountability whatsoever, or then you're getting sued.
And they feel entitled to move on. I got one more question and I want to get final words from everybody. And this is because, to the next step of this is things are changing. Technology is at the forefront. And I know there's a lot of people in our generation that are not comfortable with this. I know Shantae, this is where you shine. I want to go to April and then Navanya, and then let Shantae speak about this technology, AI. All of this is happening that is very different than the world that we initially were born into in the 70s, right? I was having a conversation on the reprint just about how so many people are fearful. Will technology basically take over to where those of us that are creatives no longer have a space? How do you embrace technology? So I'll start with you, April, and then Navanya, and then Shantae. How do you see yourself in this new age? Because technology is at the forefront more so than I think anything else right now.
Well, me, Peter Pan, I am not going to be a dinosaur. I will not be a dinosaur. And I just refuse. I've always been adaptive. I've never been resistant, so I'm always intrigued. I'm always the one at South by Southwest. I'm always the one, how people go to these things and they just want to network. No, I want to learn. So I immerse myself in information. I am not afraid of it. And I know that I've put myself now that I've been able to really automate a lot of the things that I do. So I feel like if you do not adjust, you're going to be left in the dark. You think now because you're struggling, because there are no jobs, there are not going to be any opportunities if you're resistant to tech, and it's becoming, and it changes daily. So I feel like if we're in this world, we need to have an understanding of how to thrive in this world. And that does encompass things like what we're doing right now. They couldn't do this a couple of years ago, so you have to stay mindful, especially as entrepreneurs. You have to stay on the cutting edge of things. I don't want to be late to the party. I want to know what's going on, with the fact that they're diminishing the dollar and how this digital currency is working. I want to know, how to automate my business over here trying to struggle with Google Docs when you got your little AI agent who can do it for you. I feel like it leaves you in the dust if you do not adapt. You have to adapt or become a dinosaur and become extinct. And I tell people around me, especially Gen Xers, some of them are resistant. If something seems a little bit complicated, they kind of, I'm gonna do it how I've been doing it. Yeah. And you're going to be lost.
Yeah.
Lost. Yeah.
Navanya?
I am of the mind that when the word says the children of the world are wiser in their generation than the children of the word. And that for me was a charge to really get into this AI space and get an understanding of it. Because that in their generation piece talks about the advancements, the changes, the progression of time, tools, and techniques. None of us want to be riding around in a horse and buggy, and none of us are talking on them old brick phones, right? We have moved forward, and that is not going to change. From, history is the best reward for all research. When you look at it, everything has changed, and then some things come back. Now we wearing bell bottoms again, and vintage is the new thing. So we never know when we'll have a Sankofa moment and we have to go back and get something. Yeah. Even with AI, it doesn't have the soul that we have. So that gives us the opportunity to be unique by remembering connection, by remembering care and tenderness and kindness, by remembering our imagination, right? Mm-hmm. And as we empower ourselves in that space, we become less intimidated by AI because we remember all of the untapped capacity that lives even within our own brains. Mm-hmm. And as April said, using it as a support for yourself to create more time, more efficiency, more reach, all of those things make it a less intimidating space to go into, right? And for me, I'm a faith girl, and it's gonna take faith, girl, to do this thing and to do it well, and to do it in ways that allow us to be the best versions of ourselves. So I'm all for it. I'm not gonna try and put a nail in with my hand. I'm going to use a hammer. I'm going to get the tool that lets me do it with the greatest ease and efficiency. So I invite people to start there. This is here to serve me. I'm not here to serve it. And that makes the transition a little easier,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
Okay.
So the AI conversation is another one of those things that I am grateful for and excited by, right? I feel like it's an exciting time to be alive to even witness and experience this. So what I always tell people are these three things. The first thing is um, whatever obstacle is standing between you and AI, it probably isn't real. I always hear the privacy thing first, and the first thing I say to people is, here's a clue. You gave up your privacy a long time ago, and they look at me like, what? I would never give up my privacy. And I'm like, that smartphone that counts every step that you take and every heartbeat, that Apple Watch that can tell you your blood pressure at any given moment, or your heart, how many times your heart beat in the last minute, and then that Apple Cash, which can tell you what's on every single one of your cards and how much you make, and then the conversations and all of that. And Siri can tell you everything you just said. You gave up your privacy so long ago for convenience. It's not even funny. Everybody's like, oh yeah, they're trying to put a chip in you. The chip been in you. You bought it. You paid $1,100 for the chip. You carried it around in your pocket, your purse, and everything else. You bought the chip because of the convenience. Everything from your laundry to your supermarket order, everything's on the phone. If you rather the laptop get run over by a car than the phone, because everything's on the phone.
Everything.
Privacy is not an issue. Let it go. It never was. And then I also tell people, who has Alexa, Google Nest, or an Amazon Firebox in the house and you're talking to it. Because if you do, you have had AI in the home for so long and you're acting like this moment is different. There's a reason why when somebody gets murdered in a house, the first thing that the investigators go after is Alexa, because she's recording every minute of it. And if they tap into the right thing, they can hear exactly what happened going right up to that moment. Or if you're holding your phone in your hand and you say, man, I really need something from Target, whatever, pick your store, at home.com, whatever, Hobby Lobby. When you go on the YouTube, what's the first ad coming up? Whatever you just said 2 minutes ago, because nothing is private anymore. And you have been a willing participant for so long, like cut the crap. The last thing you should be doing is not being the person to take advantage of these AI innovations that are available to entrepreneurs and professionals of today. So the next thing is this. Ladies, if you are one of the 3 to 400,000 Black women who have been misplaced by the actions of this administration and their hostile take on DEI, the this is a moment of ascension. This is a moment where you get to redefine your value outside of DEI and decide where your value is present. And AI is your strategic partner in doing it. Everything you used to have to do on your own, you now have a partner who will talk right back to you for hours on end. And if you have a bum ass idea, be like, I want you to be hard on me. You can say those words, and it will say, okay, yeah, I think that's a shitty idea. Like, it is literally that, right? Um, it is a strategic partner. What AI can never take away, and the reason why all of these people who are worried about jobs going away is, are jobs going away? No question. Jobs are going away for people who do not have an AI capability to them. But if you've ever used AI, if you use it for 1 hour for anything, then you know that it's extremely flawed. You could stump it just by giving it a whole lot of information and asking question after question. It starts to like get triggered, and then it starts talking gibberish and giving you answers like, wait, what are you talking about? We weren't talking about baking a cake. We're talking about this right here. So it still needs a lot of direction, like everything else in life. It needs supervision, direction, and it needs the soul. It needs you. It does not have your experience, your expertise, your sauce. Like, that is the part. So you can make more money than you make now by combining an AI capability with the sauce that you have earned over the last 10, 15, 20 years in business. And you have to know that,
Mm.
right? And I have a course called AI Automation for Entrepreneurs, and it is literally to help them buy 5, 10, 15 hours per week back in their schedule by helping them to automate low level tasks, because a lot of people don't know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I started the masterclass and built it into a course, because they're like, where do I even start? So for example, last weekend was Black Women Film Network, right? The one question we had during the AI panel was, how can I use AI to market my film? So that question is very broad, but it makes total sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I told her the first thing that you have to do is put you in it. You made the film for a certain audience, right? Every film touches somebody in a certain way. And you get the people who are invested in that particular topic, issue, or whatever, whether it's survival, sisterhood, whatever happens in the story. You have to identify who would be personally invested in this story, and then you bring that to AI and say, tell me all the places where I can find this person in Cincinnati, Cleveland, Charlotte, Dallas. Now you got a strategy conversation going on. But if you go to AI and you say, I made this film, tell me how to market it, you get in the same thing as given 100 other people who came to it with the same thing. You have to come with the source. You
Yeah.
have tell them exactly what you need help with. And
Mm.
so you cannot, it's not going to think for you. It's not going to lead you. You still have to lead it, but you have to know what you're doing. And it's a time investment. You're not getting anything quick.
Yeah.
You keep having the massage that conversation and challenge it and say, I think you could do better. Give me a level 5 upgrade. I never accept the first thing it gives me, ever, ever, ever.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we definitely will have that information for anybody that wants to take Shantae's course. We'll have that available as well. And like I said, we're going to have these conversations more throughout the year. But I thought ending National Women's History Month with this conversation was important. So before we get out of here, ladies, I want to ask all of you one question. I'm going to ask these women to abide by a time restraint. See if that works. But the question I want to ask you is, we know that this will be seen by women, lots of women out there. Hopefully hundreds and thousands of women will see this. We'll see this conversation over a period of time. And for the women that are coming up, even from that, what is your wish for those women? And what is one sacrifice that you hope they will not have to make in order to find their own definition of success? I'm going to start with Navanya.
I wish for every woman watching this that she finds herself, loves herself, frees herself in every way possible. I pray that she never has to sacrifice her calling, her purpose, and her God-given right to be loved, fulfilled, cherished, and celebrated. You were created to be celebrated and not tolerated. And so that will be my wish and my hope for every woman that has the chance to watch this wonderful discussion.
April, love.
Oh, Black women, I love you so much. I love you so much. And you are the embodiment of brilliance. You are the embodiment of survival. And we are moving from becoming to being. So be every ounce of what you were born to be. I mean, take everything that you have endured, everything that you have overcome, and wrap it up and put it on the inside. Hold it close to your heart and know that it was all purpose for your good. And find yourself some strong Black women to align with. A tribe of Black women will be the magic you've been looking for. So I pray that every woman who's listening will start to not only love, but love themselves. And then find your tribe of women that you can lean into, that can support you, that can pour into you. And then that will strengthen you enough to continue to pour into others. And again, I love you, Black women.
And what do you hope they will not have to sacrifice for success?
I hope they would not have to sacrifice themselves. I hope that they would not have to sacrifice their mental health, their physical health, their emotional health for a goal. Your goal should be to maintain all of that. All of your values, your level of integrity, and who you are should all be a part of something that you never relinquish to anybody else for no reason. Not one reason is good enough to lose yourself in the midst of it. So don't lose yourself on this journey to being who you're supposed to be.
Shantae?
So I will start by saying I think Black women have already sacrificed a lot for our level of success. I think that that's already been happening. I think that the most exciting time about what's happening right now is that that no longer needs to happen. Like, I feel like now is such an exciting time to be alive, and that the advantages that we can all, the innovation that we can all take advantage of from I want you to feel unleashed. I'm serious. Like, we all have a long list of things that used to light us up and get us fired up when we were younger, and we talked ourselves out of it because we were like, oh no, I can't do that. I'm just like, no, that's too far out there. I need like a regular job, or I need like something that's more realistic. I want you to dust off those unrealistic goals and go to AI, build yourself a senior strategist partner, like a life coach partner, and ask them how you can do those things that you once thought was just too unrealistic for you. Like, for real, this is the moment, right? There's never been a time like right now. And every day the capability grows and grows and grows to the point where it can handle research. If you say, like, I'll just give you an example of mine. Since I was 8 years old, I always wanted to be a nightclub owner, right? And I was like, nah, that's unrealistic. And I live in New York, the highest damn real estate market in the world. So it's just like, am I ready to pay that rent? No. But I had a serious conversation with my Google Gemini strategist, and they did the research that, how much it's going to cost, who you have to connect with, what city agencies you have to be friends with, but just made it realistic. It didn't seem so like, no, you cannot do this thing. You can. And so I just feel like we should take whatever outrageous, unrealistic goals that we put on the shelf a long time ago, dust it off, and just have AI play with you and tell you, if this is this that unrealistic? Like, find that person and light her up. I mean, right now it seems like we're in the middle of like a contraction, but I promise you it is an ascension. Well, what we're going to look like in 2 years, 3 years, forget it. Then they weren't ready for us before. Now they really won't be ready for us when we don't have to live in the world of DI and diversity officers and all of that. Like, they're just not ready.
Any words, last minute words on the sacrifices that you hope they don't have to make?
Now, I love Black women. I feel you, April, when you say that, because I feel like entrepreneurs and Black women, those are my people, right? I believe in finding your people. Mm-hmm. And the thing is like, when I see things in the news, like Pat McGrath having to file for bankruptcy, like Fawn Weaver trying to file for bankruptcy and it being blocked, or Pinky Cole and her home being
seized
or whatever. Like, I like, that hits me in a different way, because I feel like the system is obviously not set up for these women to win. You have people who are so deep in debt on their businesses, white men, who can just still, no matter how many failures, as Mona would say, they fail forward. Yeah. And they can keep getting more money and keep getting more money. And these women don't owe a lot of money at all in the grand scheme of things, but there's no limitless checkbook to keep their businesses afloat. And whatever is set up, it's just not it's not right. But the bottom line is that we all need to just make sure that we keep pushing them forward, and making sure that, that we flood the zone with so many Black women-owned businesses that can scale, that that story is not that common. It should. Right now, it's the biggest story because there's not a lot of Black women who have businesses that are funded at that level. Right. But like, this is not a mistake. It is not by accident.
Yeah.
Designed.
Absolutely.
By design.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank each and every one of you all, first of all. You all know I love you. I'm so thankful that you did not even question, just automatically when I reached out and said I wanted to do this, all of you agreed, and I'm very thankful. This felt like a hug to me. I too am someone that loves Black women. I love us. And I hope that everyone watching this will feel the love in this space. I hope that it will radiate out to you. I hope that for those of you that are coming up, I hope that you never have to work as hard as some of us did to learn to love ourselves. I hope that that in this representation of Black women that you see today, that we didn't have the ability or the foresight to see, because in our generation we didn't see this. We didn't see Black women doing these things. And so I hope that because you see this representation, you see us and you see us willing to work with you to reach down, pull you up, and embrace you, that you never have to struggle to find yourself in a world that does not embrace you, because there is a world that is within with us. I think there's love within, and that you find that tribe and you become that tribe to another Black woman that needs it. Again, I just want to say this was the most amazing way. I feel so blessed to end National Women's History Month with these women and with this conversation that is so positive. This is not the end, because obviously there's so much in each of these topics, from intimacy to tech to just self-realization to entrepreneurship, that can go on. And I look forward to spearheading more of these conversations. But what a beautiful start. And I thank you guys all for being a part of that. Thank you all for watching. Please continue to leave your comments, and we will definitely have contact information involved on the screen for each of these women in case you need any of their services. They're all amazing at what they do. I want to leave you with that tonight. And again, happy National Women's History Month. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. Look for more from this at lenoxandparker.com.
Thank you, Krista. Love you.
My heart is full after tonight's conversation. I hope that you will listen to this dialogue, take it in. Some of these amazing gems dropped from these women are sure to inspire and change your life. I also hope that you will do your work as a sister, a part of this sisterhood, and share this conversation with a sister that you know may need to hear it. Lastly, if there's anything that you need, definitely Shantae has all the gems when it comes to this new AI journey. April is inspirational when it comes to her motivational speaking. And last but not least, Lavanya is an amazing resource when it comes to therapy and as an intimacy coach. I encourage you to look these women up and reach out and learn more about what they're doing and how you can become a part of their personal tribe. As for myself, it has been my honor to navigate this conversation with you all, and we definitely look forward to revisiting it and revisiting the state of the Black woman as we continue throughout 2026 and beyond. For more on this conversation and what we're doing to celebrate our community, please visit lenoxandparker.com. This has been your host, Crystal Jordan, and I look forward to seeing you as a part of our family at Lenox and Parker. Good night and God bless.